clarify that a little bit. Turns out there's a lot of Steve Browns in America. I'm not the only one, and I run into them every time I get a background check. And so first of all, shout out to the presentation so far. I think they're amazing. Devang, I'm gonna need you to talk to every single manager I've ever had and tell them there's a difference between releases and launches. And also, Martin, I think you're here somewhere. So I'm gonna need one of those birds for sure. I will learn how to code if I have to get one of those. But again, I'm Stephen Brown. So what I'm here to talk about today is what we call the enablement imperative. And what I mean by that is how do we take our strategies, which is kind of where everything we do starts, how do we take that and how do we land that with our sellers, with our service reps? What do we do? And like so many stories, I start off with, kind of a story. And like a lot of product marketing stories, mine is of abject failure. So I've had experience working for giant companies. I worked for Microsoft for several years. And then I worked for a company called Smartsheet, another Seattle company. You may have heard about them now. When I started working for them, nobody had heard about them. I was in there quite early. They're now a public company. And I had the opportunity to report directly to the CEO when I was at Smartsheet. And I was their first product marketer. And he was great to work with. Like, he got it. He got the value of product marketing. But he really cared about one thing in particular, and that was making sure that all the sellers had the knowledge of changes in the product, changes in our strategy. And what he would do, and in retrospect, it seems a little bit unfair, but what he would do is after every product launch or every new initiative, he'd walk down to the sales floor and he would quiz sellers. And he would ask them a few questions, and then in our next one-on-one, I could kind of tell how that went. He'd either be a little bit grumpy or he'd be really happy. And by and large, I would fail these quizzes. And he was frustrated, I was frustrated, so he decided to tie half of my performance incentives to these quizzes. And so I really cared about that. So I tried everything. I ran the playbook. What's everything we do? We send emails, we have portals and documents. We host webinars, we attend team meetings. I did everything I possibly could to land this, and it still wasn't working. And so I kind of, in a digital world, I kind of went nuclear. So what I started to do was at every product launch is I would create these detailed one-pagers with everything I thought they should know. And I'd get in early in the morning and I'd print them out. So I'd have, hundreds of papers in one arm, a roll of tape in the other arm, and I'd walk around the sales floor and I'd tape it on every single monitor. And I was like, it's there, you can't miss it. I have cut through the noise. There's a physical thing that you have to remove from your face before you do your job. And so I was really eager for when I first started doing this, like, great, I'm gonna pass these quizzes now, I own this, I'm gonna get paid. And the CEO was still pretty grumpy, and we were still failing these quizzes. Maybe we did a little bit better, but I was still failing them. And the problem was, what I was doing was really noise. It was very important to me, and I thought it was very important to the company, but it wasn't really relevant to the seller in the moment. Maybe they were having a call that day where they were gonna talk about that, but more likely they were gonna have a conversation a week later that had something to do with the information I gave them. Well, it turns out a physical piece of paper on a monitor is not the best way to do that, because that thing ends up in the recycling bin very soon after. And I remember even talking to one sales rep, and I said, what'd you think about my one-pager? He's like, yeah, can you come clean the tape residue off my monitor? Like, that was the type of feedback I was getting. And so I continued to fail, and I felt like I never quite cracked the code. And a lot of that is because I was kind of using the wrong approach. I thought I was trying everything, but it wasn't working, and I was frustrated. You may have heard this stat, we're product marketers, that 70 to 80% of the content that we create is never used. And that's true, we're a content management platform, and so we can look and we can see in the system, and that's very depressing and very true. But sales is frustrated too, because on average, the average sales rep is spending 4 to 8 hours a week creating content that already exists. So there's a massive disconnect here. They're wasting their time, we're creating stuff that's not being used. So we need to figure out how to make this connection. And so our pain is real. I mean, we're focused on a lot of different things, very, very high level view of the world here. But product marketing, we think about content, messaging, positioning, the traditional enablement tactics that we're doing. And what's the result? None of it is landing. Even I had a couple reps who were, even they would really internalize this data sheet. They would get it. They'd kind of remember it. And then a couple weeks later, I'd be on a sales call, like a lot of us do. We listen in on calls. And I'd hear them talking about this. And they're not talking about it in ways that are compelling and inspiring. I would say, that's not the way we should be talking about it. So there was still a little bit of disconnect. So something was missing here. So why are we the way we are? Like, what can we do to fix this? Because our traditional tactics aren't working. And so I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler here. The conventional wisdom is half of the problem. And then I'll talk a little bit more later on what I think the other half is, and that's where I really believe the enablement imperative that we have today is. And so the conventional wisdom is content management. We're in product marketing. At some point in your lives, unless you're lying to yourselves, you've been told that you have a content management problem. People can't find your stuff. You can't really measure what you have. You're not versioning stuff. You're not doing. I see some people laughing in here. It's like you probably had that conversation this morning while you're here and somebody's texting you like, where is that data sheet? Where's the brochure? So we have this problem. And let me be specific about some of the elements that we have when we think of content management. And so the first one, findability. Things like browse, recommend, search. These are things that are just so core to the experience. And the example I love to give is Amazon.com. Like, we need to love our collateral and what we're doing as much as Amazon.com loves their products, because Amazon.com, they make money off their products. Well, so do we. I mean, everything that we're doing to our sellers, we make money off that too. So we need to provide a great experience. And Amazon has figured that out. I mean, their UI may not look like the most modern, but boy, they know what I'm looking for. I buy a lot of stuff for my kids every time I go there. There's kids stuff everywhere, and I'm ordering stuff for my daughter and my son. Their AI has figured me out. So we need to fix the findability aspects. We need to fix, if you have a poor search experience, maybe a Google Drive or Dropbox, if you haven't organized stuff in such a way where people can't discover that through search, you need to find ways to fix that. If you don't have a browsing experience, because a lot of times your reps, they don't know exactly what they're looking for. So you need to have some sort of browse and discovery experience that's compelling for them and sucks them in. They can discover more of the great things that you have that's super relevant. Another piece of this is analytics. And so you use analytics because you need to know what the problem is. And there could be a host of problems. One, like, I can't even find what I'm looking for. And that could just be an education problem. Like, I need to tell people where they can go to find things. Another piece of analytics could be they're finding it, but they don't like it. And modern analytics and a tool that's really looking in your content system can tell you that my sales reps are finding the content, I can see that they're viewing it, but they're not using it, they're not pitching it, they're not sharing it with customers. Or the worst case scenario is they can find it and they like it, but the customers don't like it. And it's not driving revenue. And that's the biggest problem, because now you're wasting everybody's time, but you think you're doing a great job. And so we need to think about those different elements. And the last piece I would say with content management is what we think about as governance. And that's, organizing your content, versioning it, keeping it fresh. And there's no magic bullet here. It's probably one of the least fun things we have to do is you create a new brochure, an infographic, and you're excited about it. Well, you need to keep that fresh. Otherwise, your content system or however you're surfing this, there's just going to be a whole lot of outdated stuff in there. And you're just going to, imagine if you went to Amazon and 90% of the products were no longer available. And every time you click in, it's no longer available. You can't ship. That would be really frustrating. And a lot of times that's what we're doing to our sellers today. And so as we move forward, I want to think about let's kind of agree on what is our high level goal as product marketers. And my contention would be it's to ultimately elevate conversations to win and keep customers. And there's a lot more that goes into it. There's product strategy, there's GTM strategy, there's a lot of things that go into it. But at the end of the day, if your strategy isn't landing in those conversations, you're undermining your whole strategic advantage. And this is why, in my introduction, I'm super passionate about the strategic element and how we ultimately connect that to our reps and anybody who's having a conversation with the customers. And so I threw this slide in here recently. It's something that we've been passing around internally at HighSpot. I thought it was just super interesting. So 67% of well-formulated strategies fail due to poor execution. That's crazy. I mean, you could have 3 great strategic ideas in a year, and they could all make your business a ton of money and connect with customers. But 2/3 of them are failing just because of the execution element of that. That's kind of depressing. This other one, 5% of employees even understand their company's strategy. Now, this is all employees, not just customer-facing employees, but that is extremely depressing. Think about this room. If we all collectively, kind of came up with a strategy, that means that table right there is the only one that understands our strategy, and we all have to go execute on that. That is a massive problem. And so I love this slide. I'm not going to read through everything here. I call it like attack of the statistics. We're supposed to use proof points. But one of the things that I pull this slide up to kind of illustrate is it is really hard to land our strategies today because we should be thinking about our buyer and why it's difficult for us to reach those buyers. And the modern buyer and the modern purchase experience is complex. There's more people involved. And they're relying on reps like they never have before. A lot of times they're purchasing from the first rep that offered insights. And I'm guilty of this myself. I had a rep call me once for a competitive intelligence tool, and I really liked him, and he gave me some great insights, and guess what? I bought that. I looked at some others, but I was so interested in that because I really liked that rep and the insights, and I thought that was very reflective of the whole company. And it makes sense, because this other point, 53% of customer loyalty is driven from reps offering valuable perspectives. So it's extremely important that we're thinking about how we're empowering our reps and our service reps to handle those customer conversations, because it has implications for our business throughout the whole life cycle of their relationship with us. And so how are we doing with this overall? Yeah, not so well. So 77% of buyers said their last purchase was very complex or difficult. So we're, yes, it is more difficult for them, but there are things that we can do to make this a better experience for our buyers. And we need to focus on this because most people today, you want them to buy our stuff. You want them to have great experiences, but today they're not having great experiences. So they don't want to go, they don't even want to embark on this journey. So we need to think about how we can deliver better experiences. And so customers have high expectations, and you win by exceeding them. Think about customers today. I mean, the competition is moving very fast, faster than they've ever moved. And that's true, and you can say that virtually every year. Competition's moving faster. Buyers are hyper-educated today. I mean, I've listened in on calls where I hear a buyer, talking about capabilities about our product. They've done their research. They've tapped their networks. They have gone on to G2 Crowd. They've done their research. They know what they're talking about. And, our reps need to be able to keep up. How do you lead a conversation when somebody is that well educated on the discussion and they have such a strong perspective? And so I want to be a little bit more specific on what I mean by elevating customer conversations. So imagine this world, all your customer-facing teams, all your reps, your service reps. Just imagine if they have an understanding of what to know, what to say, and what to show. So they have all the knowledge, the product knowledge. They have the foundational knowledge to handle the conversation wherever it needs to go. And they know what to say. So they know the words to put it. They know how to articulate the ideas. They know how to tell stories. And then lastly, what to show. We need to help them. A lot of times we're the ones that are coming up with the various exhibits that they're using. We're helping build the demos, the data sheets, the brochures, the infographics, the videos. We need to give them a guide of, great, what do I actually show them? And so content management being the first half of this problem, the other half, and you can probably see where this is going, is guidance. And we use guidance just as a high-level term for like the instruction manual on what you're giving your sales reps. Like we do a lot of stuff. We have this massive bill of materials, but we need to show them, or we need to tell them exactly what to do with what we're giving. Our whole bill of materials, we need to tell them exactly what to do with that. And literally, I mean, that oftentimes means, and this is something that we do at our company now, is writing down what to know, what to say, and what to show, literally in that format. And so I'm going to borrow some stereotypes here, sorry. But one thing that's extremely important to realize, and this is near and dear to me because I'm in marketing. I'm kind of a failed salesperson myself. That's kind of where I started my career. And we tend to think very differently in sales and marketing. We think in personas and segments and content. In the sales world, they tend to think in very action-oriented terms. They don't get off a phone call and think, like, that was a great call. I need a new persona to be able to talk to them. No, they're like, how am I going to follow up with that person? Like, what do I literally do next? Not to this persona, but to Jane, who I just got off the phone with. Literally, what is the next step that I do? And so we need to figure out how to speak the same languages. And so we see, and this is like kind of the heart of my contention here, is like guidance is the bridge between marketing and sales. And now I'm going to get into a little bit in like how we kind of get there. And like I said, guidance is about, ultimately actioning it. That instruction manual is so you can take action on what you're giving them. And so, you hear a lot of times in sales, think about the terms they use: upsell, cross-sell motion, a lot of motions. They're very action-oriented terms. And so guidance could be about, how do I handle this objection? An objection is an action. A competitive scenario, cross-sell, upsell, launch is a whole scenario that you need to support. Maybe there's an event. In fact, when I came to this event today, we have an amazing events team at HighSpot. I knew I was going to get this play that detailed everything about the event, down to my personal logistics, everything I needed to know about who's going to be here, what we're going to get out of it, what's the sessions, where is it. They took all of that and they put that all together for us in this play. And it's not just me. We have other people. We have some of our sales reps here who want to understand, hey, exactly who am I talking to? And that's why when you go to the HighSpot booth, they're not going to talk about certain scenarios that aren't relevant to product marketers. It's because they were already told how to action this and how to talk to these people in the right way. This is just a very specific example when you think about a play, literally writing down what to know, what to say, and what to show. And this is something that we do, and a lot of our customers are doing now with every single release or almost every single initiative that they have. They're thinking about the play, and they're thinking about literally what do we write down. So this kind of begs the big question, is who actually builds the guidance? Because this is challenging, because I should be super clear. When I say a sales play, I don't just mean like here's the launch play and we're done, because the North America account executive play for this product line is very different than the SMB play in EMEA. I mean, there's a lot of different situations and scenarios you need to account for. And so now I wish, given this audience, I could say who builds the guidance. It's product marketers. We're the ones that need to do this because we're usually the topic experts. But the problem with that is we're not on the phone enough. We're not listening to our buyers every day. We're not in every situation. So we're not really the audience expert. It's our job to know the buyer overall. But those individual scenarios, we need to know how this is going to land. And your sales team are the best people to do that. So sales should be doing this. And guess what? They're probably doing this today. Even if you think you're giving them all the guidance and it's great, they're probably doing their own pivots and changing things a little bit. But of course, the problem with sales doing it is they're not always the topic experts. And I'm sure you've listened into a call or something and you've just heard the way they've interpreted something that you've given them. And you just thought to yourself like, oh, I cannot believe they're saying this. Well, what are they supposed to say? They're all different interpretations. We didn't tell them exactly how to interpret that and exactly how to action that. And so enter sales enablement. The third piece in this, a sales enablement professional. I'm very lucky I work at a company that has a very well-defined and a world-class sales enablement function. And I really wish this was the answer because we're a sales enablement software platform, but it's not that simple either. And so the answer really comes into, it's all three of us. We all need to get together to build this guidance. Because we as product marketers, we are the topic experts. The sales team, the services rep, they're the audience experts. They know how this is going to land in their conversations, because a lot of times these are the people that actually have to say these words. And then you need your enablement expert in there too. You know, a lot of times, at least for us, they're the ones who are actually building the no-say-show framework. They're the ones coordinating this meeting. I oftentimes call them the air traffic controllers, because if I had my way, I'd have a sales readiness session every single day, and I would just be pounding and pounding the sales reps with new information. There's no way they could absorb that. Great sales enablement teams, like they're really experts in knowing how much we can pile on to our sales reps and that they can still be effective and action that. So we all need to work together, and this is different. And I literally mean getting in a room or a virtual room or something and sitting down with these people and say, now we're going to build this together. Like, I have a bill of materials. I've done a bunch of work. It's stuff we've already done. I'm not saying anything new there. But I'm saying together we need to think through these no-say-show elements and build this together. Let's write the words together, because you will be way more successful in the end if you're doing that collaboratively. And I've heard some people say, well, I do this today in a massive Word document, but the problem is it's still oftentimes being done in a vacuum with, hey, I did everything. Hey, will you take a look at it? Well, you're going to get a much better engagement and review of your content if your sales leader or whoever's responsible for that audience is in the room with you and your enablement person is in the room with you. You own this together. It's a first-class deliverable for everybody. And a couple of things to kind of pile on top of that. You need to think about how you actually evaluate and measure the performance of this once you're up and running. And I know we're getting really close to the break, so I'll run through this pretty quickly. But you really need to think about modern analytics and getting a 360-degree view on what's working and what's not. So you're going to need to look into your content system. What's the data that's coming out of that? Your training system, your call recording system. You need to look at all those signals to develop a 360-degree view of what's working and what's not. And another big piece of this is, just at a high level, AI inferencing and some modern technology that you can use. And specifically what I mean, this is something that we call content genomics for us. But think about this scenario. Imagine if you're one product marketer and you have 1,000 sellers. It's a very convenient model. And you have one presentation. And you take that presentation and you give it to the 1,000 sellers and you say, go sell. And then at the end of the day, you want to measure, what's the influence revenue of my deck? Well, the answer is 0. The deck that you created, maybe you showed it to an analyst or something, but it never really saw the light of day. It's because all your reps, they customized it. They added logos, they moved the slides around, and you want them to be able to do that. You want them to be able to deliver that experience. But if you don't have a system that can look at those 1,000 items and recognize that they're all in the same family, then you're losing some of your insights. You're not properly attributing your influence revenue to the content that you created. Only a couple slides left. So here, guidance, the Uber point is here really, if you're doing this properly and you're investing in this and you're having the right meetings, it really is the bridge between the business outcomes to your revenue generating teams. And that's how you move the metrics that you care about, your win rates, renewal rates, deal velocity. And I love having buyer satisfaction in there too. It's something that we track very closely. Like of course I care that our reps are selling, but I really want them to deliver a great experience because, again, that pays dividends throughout the life cycle. And that's extremely valuable. It's as important as some of these other metrics. And so really, again, just to kind of close this out, the big thing is we need to think differently about this than we are today. We need to work differently. We need to have those meetings because guidance can make the difference. And that is what I mean by the enablement imperative today, is we have a new first-class deliverable. You don't just deliver your bill of materials and tape stuff to people's monitors and kind of hope for the best. You need to sit down with your stakeholders and you need to build that together. And that's my contact info. I'm not super active on social media, but on LinkedIn. But please reach out if anybody has any questions. Would love to chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. I'm going to stand. Does anybody have any questions for Stephen? The enablement imperative.
We want break.
I kind of see that. We want a break.